Sup Shredders, my name is Logan aka Spiderhands and welcome to an SP Patrons video today that I'm making for Andreas as part of their custom monthly music review. And if we switch over to here, we have ourselves a track on Spotify. This is from an act named There Will Be Fireworks and it's off of the Dark Bright album. The track is titled Here Is Where. So without further ado, we're going to listen through this track from start till finish. And we're going to hear what we think. It should also be noted that there's lyrics, so we're going to look through those as we go, and yeah, let's go, let's do it. Good times. Great to have these guitar riffs coming early on. Great texturing in with those reverb delayed layers. It's interesting just to have that tremolo pitch distorted guitar on the right side. It sounds like it's unbalanced in the stereo field, but at the same time I think that's by design. It's cool to have the drums and everything else come in and kind of build it up.
The city sleeps but we're awake, we spirit home before the break of dawn upon the streets on which we live and love and breathe, and half of the high rises have turned to dust. The fear fields never scrap and rust. The silence and the west wind howls what once was here was wholly grown now, and I confess that I've lately been a mess. So I wonder where you'll sleep tonight and decide it would be best to stay out late and not come home, to wander Calvin Grove alone. I'm young enough to still believe some faded glory might just shelter me.
Phenomenal. I mean, like the vocal passing there sounded nice and sort of like intimate. There's a bit of vulnerability shown there by the singer. Captivating melodies that just sat with everything else in the mix really cleanly in the composition. Sparkly guitars up in the left. Yeah. Still really busy on that right side, but like just things are surrounding you now, you know?
And here's where my whole world turns in. Here's where my heart returns in. Here's where I've sworn and cursed. And here is where I kissed you first. And amber light shot through with rain. I swear I don't intend to waste a syllable. Each word is blessed. The truth must bleed through every single breath. Unbending
Change.
stalk, lit steeple again.
Dynamic range.
Ending dark, and someone sprayed this on the wall. I love it here, I don't at all. Do you live for the love you find?
We're kind of flirting with the listener a little bit here. We're like, hey, we're about to have a drop. We're going to get heavy at this part. Nope. Back up to that mid-range. You can kind of imagine that the end of it's going to be quite an interesting climax. And that's what I like about songs like this, where there's a longer form factor. They play with the listener's expectations to kind of drag them on and tease them. Yo, no, keep listening. There's going to be more story. There's going to be another instrument come in here to kind of whisk you away, you know. And then suddenly, like 5 minutes has passed.
That slow song to lay you down.
Great songwriting.
Your weedy, worried heart throw lay upon your darkest dark. That unsung sound burst into flame. The whale black mate that calls your name. Oh river, take my bloodied bones. The toll can have my heart to hold. Do you live for the loves you've lost? Do they linger in your thoughts and ever in your fitful sleeps and your wild and dark imaginings? Do you ever really dream of me? And if you did, what would that mean? Oh river, take my bloodied bones. The toll
and the fluctuating strings there. I was expecting it to get really kind of heavy for some reason, but almost like this is the weight of the lyrics keeping that down. Because I think it's the thing with like, there's a lot of bands that use chord progressions like this. Like I've heard similar stuff like this in bands like Coldplay, etc. That I'm not a massive fan of Coldplay, but I think the reason that I like There Will Be Fireworks and the way they're using it is the vocals are like a part of the entire aesthetic. And really, they're telling a story, but they're offering, hey, look, you can either listen to me tell you this, or you can simply listen to everything else. Like the really intricate, sort of like fun, really cool drum beat with the 16th note grooves and the offbeats there, always looping back to a formidable kind of like round point on the anchor on the first, or like the bass line that just kind of follows along and kind of supports you underneath, or like the guitar lines with this constant movement. Well, not necessarily constant, but there are changes with the way those different instruments are played, and then you've got the backing vocals that came on the left side as a foil to the tremolo pit guitar, and then suddenly everything comes along and sweeps over you, and the Toll Can Have My Heart to whole part, and then boom, we're back into it with new lead sections. The vocals have become a sub layer now. It's wild stuff, dude. It's so well thought out and considered. I like the occasional hi-hats as well, as if they're hinting at something more. It's almost as if this is as much as we'll get from it. But I think those strings here are absolutely charming. We're finishing off with those, are we? And we've got the sad violins playing their tune to turn things. I mean, it's nice for there to be a unison with it. It's nice for there to be a unison with the strings at the end. We had some da 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 on one side, and like the whole tone notes, and just the contrast between the two, the juxtaposition of the varying movements and the tides. It's tremendous. It's tremendous music. I'm really stoked with it. Because this is my conclusion of this review I'm doing for Heroes Wear, a track by There Will Be Fireworks off of the Dark, Dark, Bright album. What do I think this track is about? Well, I think after listening through it, my best guess is that he's talking to someone that he was in a relationship with, or if he loved them, and things didn't work out, and he's basically sitting where he is, and he's trying to cope with the loss there. And it's like, I just feel like going out, staying out late tonight. I don't like being here, you know. There was a person who wrote, I love being here, and he says, I don't. You know, he doesn't like, whether that's a literal or a figurative, like he doesn't want to be in the same town as a person, or it's a figurative thing, like he doesn't want to be in a position he's in emotionally or whatever. It sounds like really heartbreaking for them, and I think the cherry on the cake was like basically the heart taking the toll. I'm not sure if that's specifically because of the heartbreak he feels, or whether there was like a bigger loss or something like that. Maybe he's sacrificing himself for someone else. Maybe he's giving up his heart to be able to cope with the numbness, I suppose. I'm not sure, but look, the main thing is that even if I don't understand the story correctly, I still loved listening to it. They're a fantastic storyteller, and the lyrics are wonderful. And I think the vocals, the way that they were sung by the singer of There Will Be Fireworks, were tremendous. They were fantastic hidden chest voice there. It wasn't overplayed, it wasn't oversung, it wasn't an ego project for them. They chose compelling notes to sort of harmonize well with the rest of the arrangement. And they were always a part of the mist. And you got down to their core, they let you in. But they also made it so that it was more of a conversation rather than them just kind of dumping their stuff on you, which I really enjoyed. So it wasn't over the top with the description. There was a bit poetic, and I liked the creativity and the care taken there for it to be genuinely authentic. You know, outside of the lyrics and the vocals and how they connected, I think, because the performance there was very realistic, it was believable. You know, they really sold that story they were telling, especially when it up to their upper ranges and they kind of cried out, you know. The song itself is 5 minutes 46, and that typically is not, that is not a short song, right? But if we're honest, it's okay when a song is well written and well composed, when the theme is engaging and the performances on the instruments are sort of like enrapturing, and the vocals and the story on top it works with that too. And I think the combination of like the guitars at the start with like, especially on the evenness in the stereo field with the tremolo picking at the guitars on the right, the drum kit coming in with that bass, instead of kind of furthering the wholeness of it. I'm kind of not giving the listener everything at once and having the strings come in like maybe at the halfway point there to really articulate to mid to high ranges. For the rest of the band to sort of finish up when the vocalist did, and to just have the strings at the end doing counterpoint stuff, and then for them to kind of seg into each other at the end for that final 3-note kind of outro, I think it was absolutely wonderful. It was great pacing of the track there that I think allowed it to work what was going on with the vocals in a way that the instruments played their parts and had a great chemistry, but also the stuff they were playing wasn't overplaying within their own rights. Like the drum beats were complicated, and it wasn't easy to get those tones and let alone the effects change or whatever right on the guitars to get that kind of crispiness, the sound of snow falling down. But it was just almost the minimalism of the individual components coming together for a bigger sort of whole really sold the motif of what was going on with the theme and the lyrics and the vocals, because there was a tremendous sadness in it, a sense of loss within the theme there with those minor triads. And even if we did resolve into a major, it still started with the minor, so we had that kind of overwhelming kind of like sense of longing, that missing something. And I don't think that we ever found it. We never found it. It doesn't seem like we resolved ourselves in the strings. Maybe things came to an end just simply because we gave up trying and gave up our heart so that we could avoid the pain anymore. But ultimately, I just think it's a wonderful track with a great performance. The theme makes sense with the lyrics and the story and the vocals, and ultimately, I'm just really happy with it. It's a really well-written track, and I'm glad I got to review it. I mean, finally, the recording, mixing, and mastering, the studio production is just on point. I'm really stoked with the way they did everything there. It was incredibly articulate, well thought out. The vocals had a great presence there. The guitars were nicely panned in the stereo field and filtered so that they didn't sort of like go too low. They went around the place, and they were very atmospheric, and it created this interesting ambience there. The drums were kind of nice, and they were more full sounding. They didn't punch too much, but they were enough to keep the song moving forward. With occasional accents on the hi-hats were an interesting choice from a leveling perspective, but I'm not necessarily upset about that. The bass guitars in that low and kind of nice and balanced and kind of like moving things forward and foundation for all the other progressions in there. I just think anything else there that was added was basically a sub-layer aside from the strings that came in that latter half, and they ultimately carried us out. There was a great sort of sense of sameness with the loudness of the mix while also having dynamic range there, which I think is tremendously important in this. It needs to sound human, it can't sound too compressed or boxy, so that was handled well. The leveling outside of the hi-hats, which I couldn't understand why the hi-hats were slightly louder in the stereo field than everything else or in the mix. The occasional ones, the accented ones. Maybe there was like a specific purpose within the story for that. I'm just not sure. But outside of that, the leveling was good. There was dynamic range, and it was nice enough without pumping, so limiting and compression were handled. I mean, this is a very positive review for me of a track that's obviously very sad, but nonetheless worth listening to, because I'm glad I got to hear their story. There Will Be Fireworks, off of the Dark, Bright album. This was Here Is Where, and hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please go show them some love via their various social medias and a Spotify page, and stay cool and stay safe, and please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time as they need the help more than ever with all the crazy stuff going on in the world, and I'll catch you in the next SP Patrons video. Spiderhands out.